This idea that the name Uraeus is a symbol of God and all spiritual energies can be seen with closer analysis of the name Uraeus, the divinity as symbolized by the serpent, which was called by several names. One such name was Arat, which meant cobra to the ancient Egyptians. The Egyptian hieroglyphic depiction of the name for Uraeus is given below, Massey, 1976. Another far more widely used name was Uraeus, the subject of this discussion. Its relationship to the Egyptian god Ra can be seen in the hieroglyphics for the latter. It was the Uraeus or snake deity, which was worshipped in ancient Egypt as a sign of sovereignty and royalty. Black Gnostic Studies, 1967. E. A. Budge has written a detailed historical review of the early African use of the Uraeus symbol. This critically important review is readily available in a paperback version of his book, The Gods of Egyptians. Volumes 1 and 2. Contained within this account is a description of Uraeus's ancient usage in the representation of God's duality, vulture-serpent, during coronation ceremonies of the Egyptian priests, kings, pharaohs, in the embalming of the dead or preparation of mummies, and its relationship to the Eye of Horus, heaven, and the human head. It is upon this excellent historical account of Uraeus that we will now base this section of Uraeus, Part 2. In ancient times, Uraeus was known as the goddess Uachet, who was closely associated with the goddess Nekhbet. Both were sometimes depicted as a serpent or Uraeus. So ancient was their use that Budge 1969 asserts that they were used in the Archaic period. By Archaic, it is meant that they were used in Egypt at a pre-dynastic time before the first recorded pharaoh, before 3200 BC. Budge states, from the hieroglyphic inscriptions which belong to the Archaic period, we find that the kings of Egypt were in the habit of placing before their names the sign, Uraeus symbol, by which they intended to indicate their sovereignty over the south and north. The vulture goddess was often referred to as the goddess of the south, Nekhbet. She was worshipped throughout Upper Egypt in the city called Nekhbet by the Egyptians, which was, moreover, the capital of the third nome. This same city was called Eileithiaspolis and Civitas Lucinae by the Greeks and Romans, respectively. The shrine of the goddess Nekhbet, Nekhent, is presently located in the current Arab village of Al-Kab. Nekhbet is also believed to be the daughter of Ra, the divine wife of Khent Amenti, the holy vulture and Hathor. The serpent goddess Uachet was worshipped throughout lower or northern Egypt, particularly in the city of Pirwachet, the capital of the seventh nome, city. This city of Uraeus worship, as well as the other sites of its worship, was collectively known as Ptep, within which are two distinct divisions. The first group, Tep, was identified with Isis, and Uachet Horus was the primary deity. Uachet was regarded as the goddess of the elements and months of the Egyptians' year, Epiphu, and during later dynastic times was given the name Aptuvi, Budge, 1968. It can be seen that Nekhbet is directly related to the earlier Uachet symbol by virtue of its derivation evolution. From the Black Gnostic Studies Esoteric Tarot Chart, 1967, we can find the numerical value for Uachet Fig 5. Correspondents for the number 2 are the degree Path 1 Sacred Tarot, the Magician, signature of letter House, Hebrew Beth, Hebrew sign, English value B, Royal Crown. Moreover, upon the forehead of the royal crown were most often found two serpents, one being Uachet or Uraeus, and the other Nekhbet, symbolized not as a vulture, but instead in the Uraeus serpentine form. Budge has offered several interpretations for some of the multiple meanings of Nekhbet and Uachet. Basically, both of the goddesses were depicted as serpents. Over the right or south side of the door, the serpent Nekhbet was placed. Over the left or north side was the serpent Uachet. This placement symbolized the astronomical correlation drawn between Nekhbet and the western or right eye of the sun, daughter sun, during the latter's journey through the underworld, and that drawn between Uachet and the eastern or left eye. As an earth-bound nature symbol, the Uachet Nekhbet powers, goddesses, serpents, were seen as fertile nature goddesses, father of fathers, mother of mothers, who existed from the beginning, the creator of the world. The Uachet Nekhbet powers were also viewed as the mother of the sun god, Ra, and because of this as the mother or the nurse and protector of the kings of Egypt, who were believed to be the sons of the sun god Ra. Thus, the Uraeus symbol is often synonymous to horns, The Uatchet Nekhabet Uraeus symbol was a central feature in coronation ceremonies of Egyptian kings or pharaohs. Coronations were not mere political events, but rather religious scientific affairs. These events celebrated the king's position as a priest instructed in greater knowledge of the priesthood, further evidenced by name-changing ceremonies, Budge 1967. For example, King Tut was named Tutankhamun before his coronation and Tutankhamen afterwards. The name change emphasized his priestly elevation. It is very probable that part of the coronation process took place within temples that contained sanctuaries of the gods, Uatchet and Nekhabet. Uatchet resided in a chamber on the west or right side of the sanctuary called Per-Nesert, or House of Fire. Nekhabet resided in the chamber on the east or left side of the sanctuary, which was called Perur, or Great House. Budge asserts, it is very probable that at the time of coronation of a king, priestesses dressed themselves in the character of the two goddesses. One declared the south had been given to him, whilst the other asserted the same concerning the north. Uatchet Nekhabet powers were also centrally involved in the process of embalming the dead or mummification. Concerning this, Budge refers to M. Maspero's Memories Circaux Papyrus, wherein it is stated that the goddess Uatchet cometh unto thee in the form of the underworld, and would change their faces into things of beauty, with two brilliant eyes of light. To make certain this result, the bandage of Nekheb was laid upon the forehead of every carefully prepared mummy goddess. Uatchet cometh unto thee in the form of living Uraeus, to anoint thy head with their flames. She riseth up on the left side of thy head, and she shineth from the right side of thy temples without speech. They rise upon thy head during each and every hour of the day, even as they do for their father Ra. And through them the terror which thou inspires it in the Holy Spirits is increased. And because Uatchet and Nekhabet rise up on thy head, and because thy brow becometh the portion of thy head whereon they establish themselves, even as they do upon the brow of Ra, and because they never leave thee, awe of thee striketh into the souls which are made perfect. I am Horus, and I have come forth from the Eye of Horns, i.e. Ra. I am Uatch African Nyoka Nyombe, Nyoka Basunde, Nyoka La Nyoka Zubalo, Nyoka Sonda, Nyoka Kisan, Nyoka Nyermban, Noga Basuto, Nyoke Swahili. Massey maintained that the Y in the names is not a primary sound, but rather one that evolved from the Enkin Kak, or Enyi is the original African sound. In the Enket or Enying form, the name for serpent exists in hieroglyphics, where Enkakai is synonymously interchanged with Nakand in the Egyptian hymn to Amenra. The sun god is said to send his arrows against the evil serpent Naka. To illustrate the universality of the serpent symbol Uraeus, we will now review several uses of the symbol in an esoteric, geometrical, natural totemic, phallic, astrological form. As a geometrical symbol, the serpent was pictured as swallowing its tail to form a circle. The Egyptians used the circle to represent the serpent because they believed that the serpent's body had no appendage other than the head with its mouth. Thus, all circular objects were named serpents. It is also interesting to note that a serpent sitting in a coiled or spiral position can be viewed as several circles juxtaposed one on top of the other. Looking at natural totemic symbols, the snake found in nature, we have several important considerations. Lightning was considered a serpent because of its zigzag movement across the sky, which was similar to the zigzag movement of a snake across the ground. Lightning also makes a hissing type of sound like the sound made by snakes.